Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. Welcome to another episode of our podcast where we are remapping minds so you can create a life you design. I am Dr. Maisha and I am so excited for this guest. And we're having a conversation about the power of retreats and strengths-based leadership. But
Mhm,
this guest, she is I would call her a mentor. I would call her definitely she's a colleague and a friend.
mhm.
And I just am very excited to have this conversation with Dr. Tamara Beckford. And she is the owner of Your Caring Docs. She helps companies to reduce employee burnout through wellness strategies and employee retreats for private practice owners. Man, let me tell you, I already know y'all who listen to this podcast already know that's right up my alley.
Mhm.
Love talking about psychological safety. I love talking about trauma, and this is going to be, right on point. So, Dr. Beckford, welcome, welcome, welcome. How are you?
I am doing well. Thank you so much for inviting me into this space. Thank you for all the listeners who are inviting me into your space also. I am excited about our conversation today.
Ooh, me too. Me too. Well, I always like for the listeners to get a feel for who Dr. Beckford is
Mhm.
and how you got to where you are. Like, how did you come to do what you do? So, tell us a little bit of your story.
Absolutely. So, as you mentioned, I'm Dr. Tamara Beckford. I have two arms to this wonderful person who I am. So, on one arm is the clinical portion of me, where I am a board certified emergency medicine physician. So, I've been practicing and doing emergency medicine for over 15 years. As you can understand, that is a high stressed environment. And then, remember that thing that happened in 2020? Yes, right? So
Right.
COVID really brought out a lot in others, a lot of more stress. But although it brought out a lot of stress in others, what it actually brought out in me is a lot of the strength that I found that I had in me. And that's what
Mm,
I'm using now within my business, Your Caring Docs.
mhm.
So putting it back to 2019, I recognized that I am doing well clinically, and there are more to me than just being a doctor. I know for those who are probably not in the space and you hear us saying just being a doctor, you're like, what are we talking about? But when we've really put so much time and effort into a career and you're doing it for a while, you start to wonder because in order for us to get to this point, it's almost been 15 years of
Mm,
training and working and so on. You start to get pigeonholed in your mind, and you start wondering, am I able to do other things, or is this all that I can do?
yeah,
And is this all that I am meant to do? So
yeah.
I was in that portion of life, got introduced to the personal development arena, and started to read books, started to
Mhm.
listen to podcasts, and that helped me to shape my mindset and shape my outlook on life. I'm like, wow, this is interesting. This whole morning routine, learning how to really look at different situations from different standpoint, not being such a hothead, everything just flares you up. Oh my gosh, I can't believe that person did that. When you start having conversations in your mind about what you would say to somebody if they were to ever come to you, and all of
Yes.
this is just a made up conversation because nobody's thinking about you. So I was really like, in that space, and I learned how to improve my mindset, and I was doing very well. And then the pandemic hit, and I just continued into that mind space and my outlook in the pandemic when I realized a lot of my colleagues were having a different version of
Yeah.
their life. So they were going through the higher stress, the anxiety, because as I mentioned, I'm an emergency medicine physician. So we were in the front lines of the
Yes.
unknown right at the beginning. But because I'd started to train myself, I was using all my skills, which is, I'm getting up. I'm not immediately going on social media looking at my cell phone, listening to the news. I started, I was doing things like meditating. For
Yeah.
me, I'm spiritual. So, I was reading my Bible. And then, movement was a part of what I did, connecting in social circles with like minded people, which,
Yes.
Dr. Claiborne and I are in that wonderful circle now. And she,
Yes.
seeing how powerful that is. So I really had such a solid ground. My colleagues were having the opposite effect.
Mm.
And as we eventually moved through this process, I realized it'll really be unfair for me to have all of these skills, which were some of them so subtle changes that you can do for your outlook on your life and even your day, and for me to keep this to myself. So I
Mhm.
started to merge my company into doing these workshops on stress management, burnout prevention, because a lot of it, people think that you have to have a huge overall, like, yes, you do company wise, but personal wise, sometimes there's just some subtle changes that can really have a huge impact. So that's how your caring docs and the portion for helping the organizations to reduce employee stress and burnout through self-care strategy and workshops. That's how that part came about.
I love it. Wow, you said so many things. Here's one of the first things that stood out to me.
Hmm.
Whereas the pandemic brought out the strengths already in you. Like
Hmm.
that was the very first thing you said. And I was like, wow. Like it's a frame, and you talked about it. Like you started to get into personal development, and that do those reframes and shift that mindset. And it impacted the way that you moved through the pandemic
Absolutely.
as a frontline ER physician. By the way, thank you for your service.
Hey, my pleasure. My pleasure.
Yeah.
It definitely shows the power of the mind and the reframing. And prior to that, I didn't understand this. And prior to stepping into this world, because it really is a world, because
Mhm,
once you step in it and you're reaping the benefits
mhm.
of that, you can't undo this. And
Yeah,
even if you do backslide a little bit, you recognize and you feel the difference, and
yeah,
you don't like that feeling.
right.
And so you find ways to bring yourself back to the point where you're able to be in a state of mind where you're more in control of you, your thoughts,
Mhm.
and your actions.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And when we talk about strengths-based leadership, like
Mhm.
it's the core.
Yes,
It's the foundation. It's the
absolutely.
very beginning above
Absolutely.
all. And so, yeah, I just appreciated that it was like your opening statement, right? Even though you said some things, but then you were like, this, and I'm like, oh, drop the mic. That's our show for today. Thank you. No, I'm just kidding.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you're right. Because when we talk about like even strength based and we're talking about organization leaders, there's that word, you're really on top and you're really the person that people are looking up to.
Yeah.
But if you don't have that strength within you and you don't have that conviction, then you fall apart. You are letting in a lot of the negative, the insecurity, the I'm not sure, and you're not standing on your convictions.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that alone will lead to some burnout.
Absolutely. And it'll affect your teams. It'll affect the people. And so, the second thing that you said that I really loved, and I think that a lot of people, whether they're inside or outside of medicine, can relate to
Hmm.
is this all that I
Yes,
am?
yes.
Right? Like, yes, of course, you had me chuckling when you said people who are not physicians listening to this, am I just a doctor? Would be like, just a doctor. And there is a little bit of nuance that you have to be in medicine to understand. But like,
Hmm.
what's very relatable is you're in a place and you're like,
Hmm.
is this all that I am?
Yes,
Right? And recognizing that whatever profession you're in, it isn't.
yes.
There's more.
There
Right?
is.
And
There is more. And a lot of times there's a guilt associated with getting to that space. And I think it's so important for us to acknowledge it, because those who are not in that space look at you, you feel guilty
Yeah.
because you're like, I want to do more. And others who are not in that space are looking like, isn't that enough? Are you being greedy? Aren't
Mhm.
you being selfish?
Mhm.
But you know within yourself, when you want to do more, a lot of times, most of us who are thriving to do more are not thriving to do more only for ourselves. We're thriving to do more to contribute to society, because we
Yes.
know that there more that I can contribute other than just this piece.
Yeah.
So once I recognized that about myself, that guilt started to go away.
It's
Yeah.
interesting as you were sharing about the guilt, and I appreciate you saying that. Like we have to acknowledge that the thing that came up is growth guilt.
Yes.
You know, like yeah. I mean, I don't know that it's ever been said. It's been coined, but I might have to coin that.
I please do. I
Growth
talked about that on another interview, but I did not coin it. But growth guilt,
guilt.
and it is very real.
Is, especially depending on like what your background is, your upbringing
Mm-hmm.
is, you
Mm-hmm.
know, like first generation
Yes.
people, right? Who are the first to do whatever they're
Yes.
doing, is that sometimes there can be that growth guilt because
Mm-hmm.
there's a background conversation of, oh, you think you're better than us? Oh, like you
Mm-hmm.
said, isn't that enough? Are you greedy? Like all of these background inherited conversations start to come up,
Mm-hmm.
and to be able to really reframe that like you said and to say no, this is because I'm creating something, a bigger impact.
Yes.
I want to create a bigger impact. For me
Mm-hmm.
personally, it's like I want to break cycles. I
Yes.
want to break cycles and leave legacies. You know, I have a
Mm-hmm.
son, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what would it be
Mm-hmm.
like to leave a legacy for him and his friends? So
Yes.
I really love that you brought that forth.
Absolutely, absolutely. I distinctly remember having that growth guilt. And when you're talking about first generation, and even for us in who are in careers where there's a huge jump in the salary. So during training, you're putting forth a lot of energy, but your salaries are very low. And
Yes.
then you go from that to almost like four times the amount. And
Hmm.
the difference is really like 30 days.
Hmm.
You start to feel and this is sometimes this is not something that the family or extended family puts on you. This is what you put on yourself, right?
Correct.
It's a lot of this mental fortitude that you have to build upon it, because you start to get this breakdown where I should be able to help everyone. I see this family member suffering, that family member suffering, this person suffering, and I feel guilty for what I am now earning.
Mhm.
But you forgot to include the years of energy that you put into getting to that
Mhm.
point.
Yeah.
The guilt just overtakes you. For me, it took a while to release that,
Mhm.
and to know that it's okay for me to earn well. It's okay for me to serve others. It's
Yeah.
okay for me to be there. And it's okay when I'm not able to be there.
Yeah. And you know what else it's okay? It's okay for you to find your strength
Hmm.
and utilize it and leverage it in the way that feels best for you.
That's
Like
more
I feel like
natural.
that's something that has to be said because I think that sometimes in wherever we are, we can keep ourselves small, even though we know we have this gift inside of us. We can keep ourselves small because
Hmm.
of other people's conversations or because of our internal conversations or our
Hmm.
witness, what we witness somebody else go through something that we are trying to avoid. Like
Hmm.
maybe our family didn't say this, but we heard
Right.
someone else's family say it to
Hmm.
our friend, right? And so
Absolutely.
we internalize that. And
Hmm.
so I think that, we talk about, bringing it back to this whole strengths-based leadership. Sometimes
Hmm.
it can be challenging when you don't embrace the strength itself.
Hmm. Absolutely. And I think if we look at all of us, we have different strengths. It
Hmm.
comes out at different parts in our lives,
Yeah.
when you were in high school versus
Hmm.
college,
Hmm.
professional school, now in your profession, early career, mid career, later career, you
Right.
have different strengths that you really tap into.
Yeah.
You also, when you're a leader, you look at your team and your team has different strengths.
Hmm.
And it's important for you to pull on their strengths because even as a leader, you can see the strength in someone that they don't see within themselves.
That's right. That's right.
And a true leader can develop that strength and to use it to benefit the organization and also benefit that person. Because once that strength starts to develop, that person's self esteem automatically increases.
Yeah.
And then they might be, as we mentioned, talking about generational things, they
Hmm.
might be the only one in their family who has,
Yeah.
and you are able to show them that there are skill set that you naturally have, but let's tap into it and pull it in this direction.
Yes. Absolutely.
So it's so important.
It is. It is. Something that you said sparked something for me, which is, leaders developing leaders. And I think one of the things that comes out of that is that leadership who are developing leaders
Mhm.
have the opportunity to show the people they're developing that leadership looks different in different people.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Before, when we really look at life overall, especially if you're coming from disadvantaged backgrounds where you're not really getting a breadth of the entirety of leadership,
Mhm.
sometimes the person that's put in charge is just the loudest person.
Right.
That doesn't mean that they're a leader, that
Right.
just means that they're loud.
Speak.
Yes, but a true leader is able to bring out the best in their team,
Mhm.
have their team, they can cast the vision of where we're getting the team to go, and
Yeah.
then they use the skill set of everyone to get there. And the team recognizes their role and their happy. I know a lot of people don't like to use that word nowadays, but they're happy to really engage to get to that goal using their skills. Now,
Yeah.
the loudest person might not be that leader. You have so many people who are leaders who are quiet, they're introverted, they
Mhm.
stand on strength and fortitude, and they're
Mhm.
still able to cast that vision on their team.
That's
And
right.
they're still respected by their team because of the outcome
Mhm.
that the team has unified strength building, that they're each able to develop their own strength, and they see it within themselves and they see how their strength contributes to the goal of either the practice, if it's for private practices, or the larger organization, the smaller organization, the nonprofit. There's a goal that you have,
Yeah.
and that leader is able to cast it, the team members work together, and then they're able to achieve it, and that's leadership.
Absolutely. And listen, I love that you use the word happy. We need to normalize using feeling and emotional words in,
Yes.
yes, in organizations and in leadership. And I think, part of what is an issue, and I'm gonna say an issue in like safety, psychological safety inside of the workforce, is
Mhm,
that they've extracted all the emotion out
mhm.
of the organization as if we're not humans, as
Yes.
if we don't have a human experience.
Yeah.
And so I love that you use the word they're happy to, because
Mhm.
really, when you have an environment where the leader is leading from their strengths, where they're developing their leaders, where there's safety in the environment, where
Mm.
they feel empowered, they are happy. They are
Yes.
happy and they're happy to do. So
Yes.
I appreciate that you use that word. Yeah.
Yes.
And that kind of
Absolutely. Mhm.
leads me to this whole idea of retreats
Yeah.
and the power of retreats in cultivating
Mhm.
strength-based leadership, in cultivating leaders, creating leaders. I'd love you to share about that.
Absolutely. So when we think of retreats, a lot of time people are like, "Oh my gosh, it should be time to let our hair down. oh, why are we doing all this? But my thought process is, why not both?
Mm-hmm.
You know, why is it that we have to choose that we're either gonna have fun
Mm-hmm.
or learn skills that are building skills, that are skills that we can use, to help our either teams? Why
Mm-hmm.
can't we tackle issues, come up with ideas? Because
Mm-hmm.
I feel a lot of the solutions to the issues that's going on within a lot of organizations, the people right there, they have the solutions. They have. Why can't we tackle it there?
Right.
So when I think of retreats, a retreat is a time for us to really sit and look at ourselves,
Yeah.
look at where we're going,
Mm-hmm.
look at how everyone can play their part in getting us there. And
Mm-hmm.
yes, also looking at recognizing the which is recognition, as in like awards for those who have been put it forth the effort during the time between the last time we sat together without stressing each other out and
Yes.
now.
Mm-hmm.
So during, when I talk about, even like for me, I have private practice, employee retreats. During that time, we're getting to bond,
Yep.
get to know each other on a deeper level,
Mm-hmm.
finding out each other's strength,
Mm-hmm.
right? Casting visions, we're resolving issues, coming up with ideas,
Mm-hmm.
and then we're being recognized.
Yeah.
During that time, when you have the team coming together and you are able to, in some way or form, get all of that out of them,
Mm-hmm.
the end of the day should not be like, "Ooh, okay, I'm so glad that we just finished doing a luau. That's nice, but are we doing a luau today and going back to the same problems tomorrow?"
Exactly. Exactly. I love, love, love what you said. And just to underline,
Mhm.
what you said about having to choose, this is part of the problem in our society is this binary thinking, like this either or
The
thinking. Like we
either
can
or.
we can either do it this or either do it that way. And
Mhm.
that's oppressive thinking. And so one of the things that, came up as you were talking about, fun and retreating is that the studies show that fun
Mhm.
lowers cortisol and that the best learning is done inside of a fun, relaxed environment
Environment.
where there is laughter, where
Mhm.
there is, and you can laugh at work. You know,
Yes, we
we do it
should
in our
still
community
be able to.
all the time, right? You can have fun and work. You can be in community. And I think that's the other thing is
Mhm.
that connection and that
Mhm.
community and
Mhm.
that bonding that like it releases the hormones, the oxytocin hormones, which is,
Yes, that
our
is
bonding
like
hormones.
super bonding hormones.
Yes, our dopamine and our serotonin,
Mhm.
the hormones for well-being and
Mhm.
and happiness.
Mhm.
And that is where the learning, the thing like the things that you're teaching them, the strict that's where it goes
Yeah.
into the cells. That's where it
Yeah.
goes in the learning goes into the body. And so
Yes.
I think it's brilliant. Girl, you have me like, okay, maybe we should collaborate and do a retreat together.
Man, hello, yeah. And that's, I love that you're even talking about the bonding and the oxytocin, that I can't wait. So for those who are, you're probably like, well, these doctors, they're throwing out these big words. I call my oxytocin hormone that I can't wait to connect with my friend again. So,
Yes.
that's the I
Yes.
can't wait. So
Yes.
when you're even with your colleagues, like you said, you're there, you're sitting in an environment, we're getting to know each other, we're laughing,
Mhm.
we're, releasing all of these things, and then you throw in, let's do some problem solving.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the mind is at its highest point to solve all those problems.
Yeah.
You come
Creativity.
in with stress and
Mhm.
it's like, well, we need to, you clamp up.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. Stress shuts us down
Hmm.
and like that bonding and that relaxedness, that fun, it opens us up. It opens the creativity.
Yes,
Right. Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Absolutely. I love this conversation. Yeah. So, tell us how do you specifically help practices and organizations
Mhm.
to be able to leverage strengths-based leadership with your retreats?
Absolutely. So, with organizations that are non medical practices, we do that usually through workshops
Mhm.
and trainings,
Mhm.
making them realize how important it is and how to use these skill sets with a team to help to reduce the burnout,
Yeah.
to reduce the turnover, to increase the retention.
Mhm.
So, that's what that day looks like
Yeah.
for the organization.
Mhm.
For the private practice one is a little bit more individualized. So I
Mhm.
curate that for
Mhm.
those in private practice. I curate that for your specific practice.
Yeah.
We're figuring out what is your need at that time, and sometimes the need varies. In talking with the different practices, sometimes the need is team dynamic. My
Mhm.
team. My practice is doing well financially, but I just can't get my team
Yeah.
to work together.
Mhm.
So that's when you curate a retreat dedicated to that.
Yeah.
So you'll still get the bonding, but the bonding is a heavier bonding in that respect, right? You're
Yeah.
pulling out the strengths, you're pulling out the different personalities, and this
Yes.
is why this person reacts versus
Mhm.
respond, because we
Yeah.
know that there are two different words.
That's right.
Yes, and you help them to move beyond that, and a lot of self-awareness, because you not only are we figuring out, well, this is why the other person reacts this way, but those who are reacting, you start to understand, well, this is why I react this way.
Mhm. Mhm.
The infamous, this is what triggers me. So, but once you understand yourself and you can understand others, then you're able to work better. And that's
Awesome.
how you're pulling those strengths out.
I love that. I love that.
Mhm.
And I think this is valuable for organizations, businesses, private practices,
Absolutely.
whatever level that you're at, is to take the time to, and I believe, especially for businesses, this is
Mhm.
something that annually should be done.
Absolutely.
Annually, because things change,
Yes.
society changes, the world. I mean, we look at 2020, from 2020 to 2022.
Mhm.
The
Yeah.
world changed.
Yes.
And so with the world changing, we change as people. What's
Mhm.
important to us, our values become different, they expand, they grow. What
Mhm.
we're dealing with changes, just
Mhm.
our circumstances, our environment, our personal environment, and that
Absolutely.
impacts what we bring into the workspace. And
Yes.
so annually, it's an opportunity to relook at, okay, so now where have we been leveraging our strengths, or where have
Mhm.
we not been, or
Mhm.
what's come up since then that's activating us, or where are we
Absolutely.
like where are we now falling short, where can we
Mhm.
tighten up? So I think
Mhm.
there's all of these things are opportunities inside of these strengths-based retreats. That's brilliant.
Absolutely, absolutely. And like we said, there's so many factors that changes within the individuals within the business or the organization or the practice, and the practice within itself.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this is the time to get everybody on the same team, all on the same vision, and
Mhm.
working towards the same goal again.
I
Mhm.
love it. I love it. Well, you know what? This has been such a wonderful conversation. I think that the audience, there's just so much juice to squeeze out of this episode. And I hope that you all who are listening, that you squeeze all of the juice, you take everything, and you reach out to Dr. Beckford. And so with that, I have to ask, as I always do, if practices, if organizations, if businesses want to get in touch with you to
Mhm.
schedule their strengths-based leadership retreat, how do they do that?
Easiest way to get in contact with me is through my website. So it's Your Caring Docs, which is URCaringDocs.com. I have a work with me tab that we can connect and we can schedule. If you're trying to figure out and to see more of what I do, I'm very active on LinkedIn. I'm one of the LinkedIn top voices. So you can connect with me, Tamara Beckford, MD. That's Tamara. And then Beckford is B as in boy, Eckford. I'd love to hear from you. Let me know that you heard me on Dr. Maisha's show. And, we'll definitely, I'll give her the shout out so she'll know that her people are listening. So I'd love to hear from you all. And I'd love to be able to serve you guys to help boost your organization's profitability and reduce their burnout and to increase their retention.
I appreciate that. And so we will have all of Dr. Beckford's information in the show notes. And if you're watching this on YouTube when it goes live, we will have it in the description. And so make sure that you go and you check out Dr. Beckford at yourcaringdocs.com. And you are caringdocs.com. So yourcaringdocs.com. And, share this episode. This is a very, like I said, juicy, informative episode, and every organization needs to do a retreat. So make sure you share this episode, share with a colleague, share with a family member, share with a friend, because everyone knows someone in an organization, right? So
Absolutely.
definitely do that. And don't forget to leave us a review. I love when reviews are left. And when you leave a review, leave Dr. Beckford's name in that review to let us know which episode that you liked the most, and let the people behind you know this is the episode to listen to. So with that, I just want to thank you, Dr. Beckford. Thank you so much for coming on the show and for having this conversation. This is my favorite thing to do, is to have amazing conversations with amazing people like you.
Thank you so much for having me. And thank you for your listeners for taking the time to let me enter into your world.
Yes. So until next time, listeners, of course, I always thank you, because without the listeners, there is no podcast.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
that's right. Thank you for listening. And until next time, y'all stay empowered.
Bye.